you did or what you're doing, from MIGs to ECAPs to diamond scalpels and many more. And there were a quote unquote a natural innovator. And for me, it's like I got really, you know, disappointed from this quote, natural innovator. Like if I'm not naturally innovative right now, I will never be innovative. That's what I want to ask you about. How does innovation come about?
I don't know if natural innovator was I'm not sure who coined that term. It certainly wasn't me, because
no, it was written about you, and I was like, okay. I don't think I want to ask Dr. Ahmed, does he agree with this word, natural innovator? I mean,
people make up so much stuff about people, man. You know, like seriously, if you only knew, if you hung out with me for a day, you'd be very, very disappointed. No, I think, first of all, I think everyone has an innate ability to think, right? And if you can think, and if you can make up an idea, I think you can actually do things. And this quote, I don't know where this quote came from. To me, actually, honestly, it is about ideas. It is about ideas. The basis of creation. That's the idea. The ideas are the basis of, that's the quote. I don't know if I made up that quote. I don't know if someone else did, probably too. But I often say in one of my lectures, ideas are the basis of creation, right? And just ideate, you know, think about and have an idea, right? I mean, that's where it starts. I agree, though. You got to make it happen. That's like I talk about execution, but start with an idea. And that has to start, first of all, again, by cutting down your assumptions. I mean, I love my fellows and my fellowship, right? But I'm so frustrated sometimes by the assumptions that my students and residents and fellows make when they see a patient, when they see a disease or they see a surgery. They assume that's, oh, I thought that's the way it has to happen. I read in a book, it says, oh, this is what the diagnosis is. I mean, like at your stage of the game, you should not be thinking like that. You should be saying, let me dig into it. Let me dig deeper. I have a thing, I call it DD, #DD, dig deeper, right? So if you train your mind to dig deeper, to cut your assumptions out, to ask questions and to say, can I do it better? If you just ask those 4 questions, I mean, you can be an innovator. Anyone can be an innovator, you know. And I mean, I'll give you some examples if you want in a second. And so the problem is, though, again, all of you have gone through medical school and previously to that undergraduate school and residency, and you've been taught the opposite way to think. You've been taught not to do that. You've been taught to follow the textbook, you know, to follow the 10 steps to cataract surgery. Don't change the settings on your phaco machine. God forbid. Don't try another technique working with me. Only use my technique because my technique is amazing. So you've been trained this way. And you know what? When you get out there, you're going to do the same thing because you have been trained this way. And so to unwind that, honestly, for some of you, it's impossible. And that's, I hate to disappoint you. You cannot get out of that because that's the way you've been trained, and you've drunk that potion and you refuse yourself to think any differently. And that's the way you're going to be. So you know what? You're not going to be an innovator. I'm sorry. I hate to be mean, but I'm saying it for a reason.
You cannot unwire that.
I'm hoping maybe there's still a challenge. No, I don't know if you're wired that way. I don't know if you're wired. I don't think you're wired that way. You know why? Because look at babies. Look at kids, right? No kid is a conformist. No kid is going to basically not test the waters, not try something different, right? I'm sorry, we're not wired that way. We're wired actually to be an innovator. We're wired to survive, to find ways to survive. We're wired that way. We don't survive by basically following step 1 to 10. We survive by observation, by basically finding another way to do something, you know, right? So we're wired differently, but unfortunately we're not grade 1 to do something that's a problem with the educational system. I hate to say it. So there's some of you though who are rebels. Some of you maybe, you know, were arrested. Maybe when you were young, maybe you went to jail. I look at you as having potential, believe it or not, right? Some of you were maybe were kicked out of school. I was kicked out of school sometime, right? You have hope, by the way, right? You have hope. Of course, you know, there's certain limits, right? So I think that's the bigger problem, honestly, right? And whether it's like, you know, micro instruments, I felt, you know what, I have to repair someone's iris. I look at the techniques and I'm going, why can't we use micro forceps and tie in the eye? I mean, what a simple idea. Tie sutures in the eye. I mean, how stupid is that, right? Nobody's thinking about it, whatever. I worked with a company to design it. I drew in the back of a napkin. And I went to a company that nobody really worked with. They were a very small company that no one wanted to see anyways. in the back of a hallway at ESCRS.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody visited, right? That's that's my story there.
Yeah.
And basically, we put this together, and now we're all suturing by grabbing tissue and using microforceps. So I mean, these aren't brilliant ideas. These are just saying, no, we got to do something differently. We got to ask the right questions. So that's what it's all up here, guys. All up here. It's nothing magical.
Yeah. Do you think asking the right questions coming from also a good understanding of the function or the physiology, or what is it that you're working with? Like, if you understand the eye very well, how does it work? What can I do, or what is possible or what is not possible with the eye? And then you jump off into that, I can do things differently.
Well, knowledge is a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge is a double-edged sword. Knowledge, especially because the knowledge you're learning isn't all true. Okay. So when you learn this knowledge and it's ingrained in your mind, and you basically feel that's the ultimate absolute truth, then it's very hard for you potentially to then challenge that. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, yeah, I cannot ask my neighbor who's an accountant to tell me how I'm going to innovate to lower pressure in the eye, because they have no idea about physiology. So you're absolutely right, though. You have to know what the prevailing physiology is and the anatomy of the eye. I mean, those are things that you have to know 100%. Mm-hmm. You have to know what people have done in the past. You have to look at the study. You have to know how to read. You have to know how to read studies, for example. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to do critical analysis. But again, we have to look at it with the right light. That's the thing. It's what pair of glasses you're using to learn. If you're basically looking at the rose-colored glasses and learning everything is one thing. If you're using another kind of filter to learn, I think it's another thing. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a common problem. You're absolutely right, where people come to try to innovate or do something better, but they lack the understanding of the disease. They lack the knowledge of the disease, and that's a big problem. I think it's a balance again. Like I said, you have to know this stuff down cold. Mm-hmm. When someone asked me about aqueous outflow, to the conventional pathway, I better know this thing down cold, and I better know at least what the experiments have shown and what the laboratory results have shown and what the clinical results have shown, because otherwise I have nowhere to start. But then I don't just stop there. I have to then challenge that and say, well, how do I move from that? Listen, don't get me wrong. We have to live with assumptions. I mean, if we challenge everything, we wouldn't be able to move. We'd be paralyzed, right? And so we all make assumptions in our life every day. When I walk out the door, I'm going to assume many things, right? So it's where our barometer is, where we draw those lines, which are going to be important. And so I think, again, find their opportunity to ask the questions is the point. And thank you for saying that. Don't forget, though, you got to know your stuff. You got to know your stuff. You have to be, you have to have that knowledge base is key.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Great. This is one of the Banksy, very famous Banksy. It's not very famous for Banksy, but this is from Banksy. One original thought is worth 1,000 mindless coatings. So when I think about coatings, it's like you think about the status quo, what is happening, the assumptions. So your original thoughts are going out of assumptions and breaking free of them and creating what is new. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think it's true. I mean, one of the motivators for me, and again, when I talk about myself, please know I'm not trying to show off. I'm not trying to, so I'm great or anything. But I think one thing I learned from other people is when they share their personal stories, it can be inspiring, and exactly. I can apply it in a different way. So for me, I love being the first. Okay. It's like the snowboarder who wants to snowboard on a slope where no one else has ever gone, even if it's very dangerous, because it's a big accomplishment. So I think being the first and want to invent something is a bit of a motivator, to find something new and find something different. And it's like an original thought, as you said. And so many of you know I try to sometimes take pictures and I try to put some words around them. And sometimes I think I should just use a quote from somebody else. But I find it so much more valuable if I can come up with my own ideas in terms of what it is, because originality is lacking, right, these days. Yes. Everybody's copying each other. Everyone's copying a dance. Everyone's copying words. Everyone's copying, someone else's surgery, whatever it is. We all copy each other, which is fine, right? It's fun. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But when you have your own original move or your own original thought or your own original idea, I mean, that is sacred, right? That is sacredness. And so I think that's something that I think we got to encourage ourselves to be independently think, which again goes back to what I said earlier in terms of how we learn and how we think. I want to just answer maybe a couple of questions that came up on the chat group, if you don't mind, just quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think Norca asked if you have an idea. A lot of my ideas I had other people develop, because you realize that, you know, first of all, I don't need to be the one developing it. I don't need to make the money on it. I don't make a lot of money on any of my developments, honestly. For me, it's about getting it out there and getting people to use it. And so I think that's the first thing. Second thing is, there's always somebody who would be willing to work with you. And I would again suggest that you find somebody or a company or something, typically a small company that maybe, you know, isn't so big and isn't, you know, and is willing to take the time to listen to you. And unfortunately, it's true. Many people look at residents and look at young people and say, oh, they can't have a good idea. For me, it's the opposite, because I think that's where the best ideas come from. For me, my best ideas have been when during my training process and early in my career. And so, yeah, you're going to get shot down. You're going to get, people are going to, you know, be negative, but keep on pushing it. Keep on pushing that idea. You know, come to other mentors. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, don't come to me necessarily. I know people come to me and say, Ike, I have an idea. What can I do? I don't know. You can do that. You can try doing that. I have to admit, I'm not the best at responding sometimes because of how busy things are and priorities, but find someone maybe who can open a door for you, right? I think that helps. I think some of the smaller companies from India, from other places, for example, that I've worked with, are willing to listen. You know, I'll give you one example. Maybe he'll kill me, but Mateen from Epsilon, you know, his company is wonderful. He does things for people and he makes great products. He's developed a lot of great ideas with people. So, I mean, that's what I would say to answer that question specifically, but if you have a good idea, for an instrument anyways.
Great. So I want to ask about something that you look forward in your life, or how do you, let's say, evaluate what you're doing? Do you look to become competent in what you do, or excellent, or do you think that competence leads to excellence?
So I think, yeah, I mean, this is a great topic because, you know, competence is something that we all have to achieve when we finish our training. And I think that's, you know, the bare essential. And I think most of you will be competent, and I hope you are, of course. But to get to the next level, to be excellent, I think that's a tougher jump, because that becomes something that requires a higher level of cognition, a higher level of thinking, a different mindset, a different motivation. And so I think that, you know, it's something that I hope people will want to achieve, but it is a higher level of thinking. And I think it's a matter of again, back to the basics again, about, you know, challenging what you're doing, overcoming the assumptions, and aspiring to want to be something better than yourself. You know, I think that's what it is. And I think it's a great feeling when you have that ability or that opportunity to show excellence, because, you know, we have to remember and ask ourselves, like, why do we do what we do, right? I mean, that's a very basic question to ask yourself. And if you can't answer that question, then I think you should stop what you're doing and just rethink things. We lose that. We get caught in the moment. And I think that one of the biggest motivating factors is to basically impact, of course, but also to show you can do something, to accomplish something yourself, and be grateful and be satisfied you've done that. And so, yeah, excellence is something I think that is a higher order function, so to speak. But most of it is not mechanical. It becomes a mental. Competence is mechanical often. It's like going through the motions and doing this. But excellence is, again, a higher level of thinking, which I think is something that we're not necessarily well trained on. And what I will say is that there are many books out there, right, you can read. Amazing. You go to the library and you will see like all kinds of books about, you know, how to be a successful business person, how to do this, how to make money, how to make friends, right? I'm pretty sure those are pretty good books. I'll have to admit, I rarely read those books. And I don't know, maybe because I don't know how much of the stuff can be learned from books, but whatever it is, you know, those things can inspire people, you know, and they can give you some ways to kind of express what you need to know. So find the right medium to kind of learn to get to the next level.
Well, before going forward, there are a couple of questions here about this topic. That what are the innate traits that one must have to be a successful surgeon, and what skills did you cultivate to become a surgeon?
Yeah, that's a question from Nikki I see here. So, you know, I think Innate traits. I think there's probably 10-20% of your ability is obviously going to be the physical, the doing part of it. No denying that, right? The actual physical skills, the hand skills, how good are your hands? I mean, that goes without saying. But the rest of it really it goes beyond that, And I think it's the mentality, which I think is really what's different. It's the observational skills. I have many visitors come to the OR, and I see somebody observes what I do, and they take something, and the other person takes something else because they have looked at it differently. And I think that we have to have the right knowledge. Because I often talk about the physics of surgery. I don't think many of us understand properly the physics of what we're doing, in terms of the anatomy, in terms of the fluidics, in terms of microinstrumentation, working in closed systems. All thinking at this level, it's a different level of thinking. And I think just even that physics aspect, to look at surgery as a physics experiment, is the first step to kind of thinking about then how do we improve our skills. Obviously practice and everything else, that's all about being competent, but I'm talking about getting to the level of excellence. I think finding ways to be efficient. Tomorrow I have a webinar for Prism. I'm talking about cataract surgery. I'm going to show a bunch of little small things that I kind of put together to sort of, I think, maybe make us efficient and make us successful. And so I think those are maybe some of the ways to do that. I think you also have to challenge yourself and know when to take on more difficult cases, because that's where we really learn and we make mistakes, unfortunately. But of course, don't just go off and do the most difficult case. But I think slowly getting yourself to take on more challenges and not being stuck in your ways, I think are all important. So the skills I'm going to tell you, I think, are really more from a cognitive level, from that aspect of it, as opposed to the physical level, and is breaking down the surgery into different steps. Even to the point about, for example, the visualization, the illumination, the magnification, all those things have to be optimized for you to actually see what you're doing. I think those are the kind of things that I think that are important in terms of the skills.
Okay, so we have this is also maybe is considered in this next question from Dr. Mohamed Abdul. Dr. Mohamed is the head of glaucoma division in the Jordanian Royal Medical Services, and he's asking, what do you think about young ophthalmologists who attempt to do surgery based only on watching the YouTube channel, which happens right now?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes ophthalmologists don't have a choice, because you know what, they don't have a place to learn, they don't have a place they can go and see somebody. And especially during COVID, I mean, I can understand that. So it is a problem. At the same time, of course, we can't just learn on YouTube, because YouTube videos are edited. There's specific cases. There's so much more that goes on. Going back to the earlier question, I look at hand positions and things like that in terms of how we do things. I mean, so I mean, yeah, it's not enough, but I hope it's a very powerful tool, no doubt.